message they want to convey to you is state power will always win. We'll paint you as a child molester, and we'll paint you as a methamphetamine manufacturer. We'll say any lie we want over our propaganda machine, the mainstream media, and we'll burn you and your children in your fucking home. So you just be apathetic, America. You stay docile, and don't you ever forget, you're free to do what we tell you.
How's it going, everyone? This is Jordan with Below the Tension. You're listening to Blurb number 2, Justice-Involved Individuals. And before I get into the news here, I'm really excited to let you guys know I have perfected my RSS feed. I've perfected all my links and downloads and ways to get this podcast out to as many people as possible. And I have submitted my application to iTunes to have it as an official podcast. You can enter my RSS feed into your podcast app for iTunes or into any other software you may use to listen to podcasts, and you will get all my shows as they come out. I'm really excited about this. I'll let you guys know when iTunes accepts my application, and I'm just really excited about everything that's going on with this because it's been just about a week and things have been going good. They could have been going better, but that's my fault because I wasn't doing what I needed to do to get this out to as many people as possible. And also, throughout the week, as news comes along about me or what I'm retweeting or articles I'm looking at, you can follow me on Twitter at SlavLibertarian. On Twitter at SlavLibertarian, you can interact with me, see what I'm up to, and that's where I fountain out all this information that is going on. You'll see during the week whether I'm going to do a blurb. Blurbs are kind of random throughout the week. When information comes up that I just need to cover before the Saturday show, I do a Saturday evening show every Saturday evening. It is video plus audio. I've decided that the blurbs are just going to be just audio because it's quicker, and I just do not have the time during the week to deal with a rendering video. But follow me on Twitter at SlavLibertarian, and let's get to it. This is first story is breaking news. It just broke within a half hour from Reuters. House 2017 defense bill would face Obama's veto, the White House says. In a press conference, a proposed House of Representatives defense bill, NDAA 2017, would face a veto from President Barack Obama in its current state. Obama advisors would recommend a veto of the National Defense Authorization Act for 2017 because the administration strongly objects to many provisions in the bill that impede the administration's ability to carry out the president's defense strategy. Now, I looked around. There isn't much information on this yet. I will follow up on this story either if I do another blurb this week or on the full Saturday evening show. That can't be good for us. The National Defense Authorization Act is widely criticized for allowing indefinite detention and torture of Americans. So we will look at that very carefully as that develops. Our next story, Obama thinks rapists, armed robbers, and drug dealers aren't criminals. Now, this comes from a new Education Department document, a pamphlet, education.gov, that says criminals should now be declared as justice-involved individuals. Not criminals anymore. You can't call things what they are. Criminals will now be referred to as justice-involved individuals. And I love this writer, Kyle Smith, and his satire that he goes through in this article. I'll get some of that. I couldn't have written it better myself. The Education Secretary, John King, discouraged his colleagues from asking applicants whether they were convicted criminals. An accompanying pamphlet was called Beyond the Box, Increasing Access to Higher Education for Justice-Involved Individuals. And I'll put the link to that pamphlet in the description, along with the description of all of the stories that I covered today. But this is a real pamphlet.gov pamphlet. And the author goes on to note, so rapists, burglars, armed robbers, and drug dealers aren't criminals anymore. These folks are simply, quote-unquote, involved with justice. The author goes on to say, when you think about it, Jack the Ripper was merely a cutlery-involved individual, while Jeffrey Dahmer was simply an unconventional dietary options-involved individual. When I read this today, I busted out laughing. That is hilarious. Colleagues generally ask whether applicants have criminal records for excellent reasons. Parents probably don't want their eager young freshman daughters living across the hall from a rapist. I mean, sexual justice involved individual. Can't make this stuff up, folks. So why, across the board really, but why is there this effort to change words from what they are? You can't say he or she. You can't call a criminal a criminal. You can't call a boy a boy and a girl. Why is there this effort to muddy down all identity? Well, as far as the Secretary King is concerned, King notes that when you ask college applicants whether they are brutalized, mugged, or otherwise committed outrages against their fellow human beings, the ugly specter of a disparate impact arises. The black crime rate is higher than white crime rate. So the fact that they ask, are you a criminal, does undue injury to blacks, or so goes King's reasoning. Incredible. You can't call a criminal a criminal. You can't be anything. You are a droid. Continue to buy things, and everything will be okay. And speaking of everything being okay, don't worry about it. Hidden microphones exposed as part of government surveillance program in the Bay Area. Oakland, CBS News. Hidden microphones that are part of a clandestine government surveillance program that has been operating around the Bay Area has been exposed. Imagine standing at a bus stop talking to your friend and having a conversation recorded without you knowing it. It happens all the time, and the FBI doesn't even need a warrant to do it. Great. Well, I mean, as Snowden revealed, they are tapping all of our cell phone conversations, and I'm sure you have much more explicit private, what you thought private conversations. In public, you do have some degree of privacy issues. You shouldn't think that everything you say is completely private, but to have it clandestinely recorded by the Federal Bureau of Investigations is a bit of a step. Federal agents are planting microphones to secretly record conversations. Jeff Harp, a KPIX5 security analyst and former FBI agent, said, they put microphones under rocks. They put microphones in trees. They plant microphones in equipment. I mean, there's microphones that are planted in places that people don't think about because that's their intent. The article goes on. FBI agents hid microphones in light fixtures and at bus stops outside the Oakland courthouse without a warrant to record conversations between March 2010 and January 2011, so for almost a year. Federal authorities, they tried to scoff it off as trying to prove real estate investors in San Mateo and Alameda counties are guilty of bid rigging and fraud, use these recordings as evidence. Aren't there easier ways to get a hold of that information other than putting microphones at public places and recording, I don't know, what someone had for lunch or maybe that they had diarrhea, or, all of this stuff. Why are we going to this broad spectrum, let's record everything, and then we think that for some reason we can muddy this all the way down and then we'll get the information we need? They already say they can't sift through all the information that the Dragnet spying gets for the NSA. So what do you think a couple of FBI agents are going to do with almost a year of recordings around the front of a courthouse? Incredible. Now, this next story, I wrote about this on Twitter. The 28 pages from the 9/11 report. Just, before I get into the story, just put this in your head. For so long now, years and years and years, 15 years, our government has told us or forbade us from knowing that a foreign interest, government, whatever it may be, was directly involved with the most deadly attack in U.S. history. Let that sink in for a second. The U.S. government says they don't want you to know that Saudi Arabia was involved in killing thousands of Americans and launching us into decades-long wars. Whose interest do they have at heart here? What the fuck? This story is by Bob Graham. He was one of the congressmen that was on those reports. And the title is, I've read the missing pages of the 9/11 report. You should be able to, too. Nearly 15 years after the horrific events of 9/11, President Obama must decide whether to release the 28 pages of information withheld as classified from public into the terrorist attacks that killed thousands of Americans. My optimism that the administration's action on this critical issue was short-lived. On May 1st, CIA Director John Brennan appeared on NBC's Meet the Press. I watched with astonishment as he argued that the 28 pages should not be released because the American people are incapable of accurately evaluating them. Now, you've been seeing in the media, if you don't, and here's the thing, if you don't follow the media that closely, you would think that it was imminent that these would be released. See, that's how things work. They put out this information, and then it's reversed, well, this, that, and the other, and then before you know it, it drops off the media, and it's swept under the rug. I don't think this is going to happen with it. There's too much attention, but regardless, back to the story. When asked to make the case against releasing the information, Brennan replied, I think that some people may seize upon the uncorroborated, unvetted information that there was inside the report that was basically just a coalition of this information that came out of FBI files, and to point to the Saudi involvement, which I think could be very, very inaccurate. So, you're calling all of these congressmen and senators inaccurate as well? The author goes on, with all due respect, that argument is an affront not only to the American public in general, but also to all those who lost family members, loved ones, and friends on that fateful day. Americans are fully capable of reviewing the 28 pages and making up their own minds about the significance. Thank you. Thank you very much. As co-chair of the Joint Inquiry into the terrorist attacks of September 11th, I have read the 28 pages. My oath of confidentiality forbids me from discussing the specifics of the material, but while I cannot reveal those details, I strongly believe the American people deserve to know why this issue is so important. This data included information suggesting specific sources of foreign support for some of the September 11th hijackers while they were in the United States. Again, this government I would go as far as to say is complicit in covering up the real truth behind 9/11. What could they possibly gain from keeping this? I don't get it. Is Saudi Arabia really that powerful in this country? Incredible. Incredible. Our last story of the day is a commentary and opinion piece about Donald Trump from Will Ron of CBS News, and this was also eloquently written. And I released last week, please go listen to it, episode 3 of the full podcast. I called it the Trump Deception. And basically I went through and laid out everything that's wrong with what's going on. And I actually saw a meme posted by Liberty Memes, go like them on Facebook, basically saying, within days of him becoming the presumptive nominee, he went back on all of these things. All of these things of which I had talked about in the podcast. Maybe they got the idea from me. I'd like to think so. Anyways. Commentary. Donald Trump, a candidate of change. There are plenty of factors that went into Donald Trump becoming the presumptive nominee. The incessant media coverage of his every utterance and movement probably contributed to the sky-high negatives. But it's unserious, not to mention smug, to assume that Trump has been playing all of his Republican supporters as dupes. His supporters realize he's a joke. They don't care. They know he's authoritarian, nationalistic, and almost un-American. They love him anyway, because he disrupts the broken political process and beats establishment candidates who've long ignored their interests. That is key. I wish I had that quote for my episode 3. That is key. I think that's really what I was trying to get at with that podcast. Like I said, please go back and listen. It's really good. A Trump victory will undoubtedly lead to profound upheaval in our political system. The policies he'll pursue in office are still something of a mystery, but due to his lack of real, grounding political philosophy, we can assume that he'll embrace positions to the both left and right of center. I also highlighted those issues in that podcast as well. Continuing, you can argue that the changes that Trump will bring to this country will be disastrous, or that his morality and intellectuality is unfit for office. But one safe bet we have about Trump presidency is that he will provoke a realignment in our politics and bring about an end to the elite governing consensus of the last several decades. I think that also is another key point. And going back to his previous point, that's really what it's all about. Is it childish to want the political system to be completely upended, even if the consequences may be disastrous? Maybe. But to just dismiss them as idiots, his supporters, is, well, stupid. It plays into his hands. It justifies the anti-elitism impulse that he has exploited. Absolutely correct. Now, this news is just so incredible. The Obama news. I will, as I said in the beginning, follow up on this NDAA, why he wants to refuse it, veto it. I think that is key to keep a hold of that. So this was Blurb 2, and stay tuned for the Saturday evening podcast, the full video podcast. I may do another Blurb this week, I may not. All depends on what goes down. But you are listening to Below the Tension. My name is Jordan, and please follow me on Twitter at Slav Libertarian, and there you will find the link to my RSS feed where you can subscribe to my channels, all my channels. I have a YouTube, The Slavic Libertarian, And I will soon be an official iTunes podcast. So thank you for listening and have a nice day.